Arthur Corwell argued that Australia needed more people to help defend the country. The children he met at Bonegilla, he said, could one day be called upon to fight for Australia. That was a powerful argument immediately after the Second World War. But Corwell was even more interested in the way the fit, young, work-ready men and women would become the workers Australia needed for post-war reconstruction. They were to be the labourers in secondary and primary industries, the domestics and the mothers Australia needed. The media was to show them being dispatched from Bonegilla to jobs all over the country. Men were sent to work on farms. They were sent to build roads, railways, dams in remote areas, and to prepare cities for further growth, or to take up unskilled jobs in the rapidly expanding steel industry. The women were sent to jobs as domestic servants, cooks and laundresses, or factory workers. They were of marriageable and childbearing age. It seemed to the cynical that new Australians were marriage or factory fodder. Altogether, Bonegilla dispatched over 310,000 new arrivals to work. The job interview was central to the process of work allocation. At it, an employment officer, with the help of an interpreter, discussed job options with each migrant. But those options were limited, and migrants knew they could only knock back 2 job offers before they lost the unemployment benefits they were receiving. They'd agreed to go to jobs to which they were directed. That work interview was the most important event in the new arrivals' new life in their new country. The job application was for men and women, and for children who were 16 or over. A publicity photo showed 16-year-old twins being interviewed with their father, hovering in the background. Some crude photographs migrants took show them clamouring to get a workplace at the employment office, and anxious to see where they'd been placed, where and how they were to live for the next 2 years. Many served out their 2-year work contract doing jobs at Bonegilla itself, some in the kitchens, some at the Bonegilla hospital as nurse aides or medical orderlies. For any overseas qualifications as nurses or doctors were not recognised, some as cleaners and labourers. Irina Vassins and her 14-year-old sister Galina arrived in 1947. They were employed as cleaners at Bonegilla, where they built up friendships with other migrant workers. Irina went on to become one of the first female block supervisors at Bonegilla. She trained as a nurse and later became an assistant matron. Immigrant women expanded the workforce and carved out roles within it that were unexpected in 1947. The processing of the newly arrived included medical checks. It only took about 3 days, but it took about 3 weeks to make each job arrangement. In that time, lessons were given to Australianise the newcomers by teaching them English and about the Australian way of life. The new arrivals were told repeatedly, "No English, no job." It was hard for older non-English speakers to learn basic sentence patterns and words. While waiting for a job, newcomers could practice their English and learn about Australian currency in the canteen. Hospitably, the local CWA organised regular bus trips to their rooms, where over tea and scones they exchanged recipes and conversation. No English meant not only no job, but also no life outside the home. Migrants demonstrated in protest when Bonegilla failed to find them jobs in 1952, and again in 1961. They'd come to Australia for a job and hadn't got one. They took out their frustration on the employment office, which did not find them the jobs that they were promised. Successive governments have boasted of changes in population growth, the economy and social diversity. For individual migrants, governments saw success through the 50s and 60s as assimilation, absorption into jobs, into homes, and into community life. Bonegilla was about absorbing and assimilating newcomers. Former residents like Galina Vassins, the younger of the two sisters, have revisited Bonegilla with their children. The children and grandchildren who visit generally tell us they come to pay tribute to their family forerunners who faced the challenges of migration. Here at Bonegilla, their families put up with the lack of privacy and the inconveniences of communal living. Here they were Australianised. Here they were given work for a new start in a new country. This public memory place tells stories of how Australia grew its workforce for post-war reconstruction, and about the experience of being a migrant, coming to and getting work in Australia.